Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. You know how much we love to unpack these complex topics, and today we're going to be diving into something that's, well, it's pretty out there.
Yeah, we're going to be looking at a fictional story this time.
That's right. A fictional story called Time Not Here.
And this one really is a wild ride.
It is. It touches on friendship, perception, forgiveness, all kinds of things.
But what I find most fascinating is that it tackles these big psychological concepts through the lens of a story.
Right, like it's not a textbook on psychopathy or anything like that.
Exactly, but you'll find yourself thinking about these complex ideas like manipulation and even ancient mythology in a whole new way.
Okay, so the story centers around this guy named Daniel. And at first, things seem pretty good for him. He's got his life together.
Until his best friend Leif enters the picture.
Ah, Leif. Now, this is where things get interesting. Their friendship is intense, like they're almost codependent on each other.
Daniel is constantly bailing Leif out of these crazy situations, money problems, relationship drama, you name it.
And not just like small favors either. We're talking full-blown rescue missions.
There's this one scene where Daniel goes to these extreme lengths to hide Leif's stuff from debt collectors.
Seriously. Rented vans, secret storage units. He even helps Leif move across the country.
It's like something out of a spy movie.
Totally. And you start to see how deep Daniel's codependency runs, but then things start to shift.
Daniel begins to notice these little red flags, these subtle ways. Leif seems to manipulate those around him.
Like Leif is always the victim in his stories.
Exactly. And those stories keep getting more and more elaborate.
And then there's this really creepy moment where Daniel sees Leif's face actually morph into a reptilian one.
Oh yeah, that hallucination scene. It's definitely a turning point in the story.
It's freaky. But here's the thing. Daniel had smoked some marijuana before that happened.
Right, so you might think, oh, it's just the drugs.
Exactly. But Daniel has a history of having these really vivid hallucinations when he uses ketamine.
And those hallucinations often reveal something deeper, something insightful about his life.
So this reptilian face, it's like his subconscious is trying to tell him something.
Like a warning sign.
And how does Daniel react?
He does what any of us would probably do. He starts researching.
But not just any research. He dives headfirst into the world of psychopathy.
He's trying to make sense of what he's experiencing, trying to see if there's a pattern to Leif's behavior.
And he starts recognizing those classic signs of manipulation. Gaslighting, fabricating stories.
Lack of empathy.
It's pretty scary stuff, especially when it's coming from someone you trust.
Makes you wonder, haven't we all encountered someone like this at some point in our lives? Someone who just seems to ooze manipulation.
I think we all have those stories.
It's definitely a relatable theme.
So as Daniel's suspicions grow, he realizes he has to get out of this toxic situation.
He makes the difficult decision to escape their shared house and try to rebuild his life.
But that experience leaves some deep scars.
He struggles with alcohol depression, and he constantly doubts his own judgment.
It's like his whole sense of self has been shattered.
He used to be the smart one, the guy who had it all figured out.
And now he feels vulnerable and uncertain.
That feeling of betrayal, it can really shake you to your core.
Totally. And what makes it even worse is that Daniel craves closure. He wants to understand why he was so deeply affected by Leif.
So he starts digging deeper, looking for answers in some pretty unexpected places.
This is where things get really interesting. He starts exploring fringe science, ancient myths.
He even stumbles upon this idea that those reptilian beings we see in ancient art might not be just fantasy, but coded warnings about manipulators.
It's a pretty wild theory.
But it makes you think, right?
Definitely. And in his search for healing and forgiveness, Daniel discovers something called the Kimba ceremony.
Have you ever heard of that?
It's this ritualistic experience with personal offerings, card readings, and of course, the Kimba plant itself.
It's all about emotional release, letting go of those things that are holding you back.
And Daniel brings this really interesting offering. A broken toy monkey from his childhood.
Almost like a symbol of the inner child he's trying to heal.
And the ceremony itself is intense. He experiences this purging of negative emotions, then a profound silence, and then bam, vivid visions start hitting him.
It's like his subconscious is trying to communicate with him through these symbolic images.
In one vision, he even transforms into a powerful gorilla.
What do you think that represents? Reclaiming his strength, his masculinity?
I'm not sure, but it's definitely a powerful image.
But perhaps the most impactful vision he has is when he relives a traumatic childhood event.
This is where we start to see the root of Daniel's issues. He's forced to kill a mouse by a classmate when he was a kid.
This memory unlocks all these feelings of guilt and shame that have been haunting him for years.
It's a powerful reminder that those childhood events we think we've moved on from can still have a huge impact on our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Unresolved childhood trauma can manifest in so many ways in our adult lives.
And it can definitely affect our relationships and the choices we make.
It's like these past experiences create a blueprint that we keep repeating until we address the underlying trauma.
And that's exactly what Daniel starts to do during this Kimba ceremony.
He has a breakthrough.
He goes back to that memory of the mouse, and this time he makes a different choice.
He stands up to his bully. He refuses to kill the mouse.
And in that moment, he breaks free from the guilt that's been holding him captive for so long.
It's an incredible act of self-forgiveness, and it marks a turning point in his healing journey.
He's finally starting to rewrite the narrative of his life.
And the changes are pretty remarkable. He comes back from the ceremony feeling lighter, freer, more connected to himself.
He's living in the present moment. He's more understanding of others.
And he even decides to prioritize a budding romance instead of going on this big trip he had planned.
Talk about a shift in priorities.
It really shows how deeply this experience has transformed his outlook on life.
There's even this funny little story about how he deals with a frustrating self-checkout machine after the ceremony.
You know those machines? They're always a nightmare.
But instead of getting all flustered and anxious, Daniel just laughs it off.
He's found a new sense of peace, and it's affecting the way he interacts with the world.
It's amazing how inner peace can change everything.
Absolutely. And that's not all. The story introduces these two new characters, Peaches and Serenity.
Peaches is this eccentric coworker of Daniel's. And Serenity is this intriguing woman he connects with through Peaches.
And there's this strange dynamic between them.
Peaches actually tries to discourage the relationship between Daniel and Serenity.
It makes you wonder what her motives are. Is she jealous? Does she have a hidden agenda?
We'll have to keep reading to find out.
This is just the beginning of Daniel's journey.
It's a wild ride full of twists and turns. But ultimately, it's a story about healing self-discovery and the power of forgiveness.
And it raises some really interesting questions about the nature of reality and the hidden forces that shape our lives.
We'll dive deeper into those questions in the next part of our deep dive into Time Not Here.
So stay tuned.
And it turns out some of Lathe's more dramatic stories were, well, not exactly true.
Yeah, like that whole mugging incident with the fake blood.
Exactly. Lathe basically admits to playing the victim, even embellishing stories to get Daniel's sympathy.
It's a classic manipulation tactic, isn't it? Creating these dramatic narratives to gain attention and support.
It's almost like he needed to be the center of attention, even if it meant fabricating events.
It really makes you think about how far some people will go to maintain a certain image.
And for Daniel, it's like a final confirmation that his gut feeling was right all along.
But here's the thing. Leif doesn't frame it as him being intentionally malicious.
Right. He claims it was more of a coping mechanism.
A way of dealing with his own insecurities and his difficult past.
It makes you wonder how much of our behavior, even the stuff we'd rather not admit to, is driven by those deeper fears and wounds we all carry.
It's definitely something to ponder. But anyway, so Daniel heads back to York, feeling this weird mix of relief and emptiness.
Yeah, imagine his house. It's eerily quiet without Lathe there.
And as he's sorting through the emotional aftermath, he finds something pretty unsettling.
A used razor blade hidden in Lathe's room.
Yeah, that discovery definitely adds another layer to the story.
It's like a hint at a darker side to Lathe that Daniel might have only glimpsed at the surface.
A reminder that we can never fully know another person, no matter how close we think we are.
It's creepy. And this discovery sends Daniel into a bit of a spiral.
He starts beating himself up for being so easily manipulated.
Yeah, he feels foolish, naive, betrayed by his own judgment. Have you ever felt like that?
Yeah.
Like you were completely blindsided by someone you trusted.
I think we all have those moments where we look back and think, how can I have been so stupid?
It's like that saying, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
But it's easier said than done to just shrug it off, isn't it?
It can be really tough to move on from those experiences, especially when you feel like you should have seen the signs.
It's important to remember that manipulation is a tactic. It's not a reflection of your worth or intelligence.
That's a good point. It's not about you being stupid or naive. It's about the other person using those tactics to get what they want.
Exactly. And recognizing that can be a huge step in the healing process.
So as Daniel is grappling with all these feelings, his obsession with psychopaths actually intensifies.
He starts digging deeper into fringe science, those theories about reptilian beings being these master manipulators.
It's like he's trying to find some grand explanation for what happened, some way to make sense of it all.
But it ends up leading him down a rabbit hole of paranoia and self-doubt.
Yeah, he starts seeing psychopaths everywhere.
Analyzing every interaction, every word for any sign of manipulation.
And his drinking gets worse. His work suffers.
It's like he's swapped one addiction for another.
He's definitely not in a good place.
It's a classic example of how we can seek comfort in external things when the real healing needs to come from within.
So true. And that's where the story takes another turn. Daniel decides to reach out to Celeste.
Ah, Celeste. The woman he met during that first Kimba ceremony.
Exactly. She's become kind of a mentor to him, guiding him through the after effects of that experience.
She offers a different perspective, encouraging him to confront his internal struggles rather than projecting them outward.
It's like she's saying, look, Daniel, the real work starts after the ceremony is over. This isn't a quick fix.
She becomes this crucial figure in his healing process.
And she suggests that maybe, just maybe, Daniel is dealing with some unresolved childhood trauma. Stuff he's been pushing down for years.
Now this opens up a whole new avenue of exploration for Daniel.
He's forced to revisit those painful memories and examine how they've shaped his life.
And this is where it gets really personal. Daniel remembers this traumatic incident from when he was 6 years old.
Involving a classmate named Ethan and a mouse.
He doesn't remember all the details, but it's wrapped in this intense feeling of guilt and shame.
It's a pivotal moment because this repressed memory might hold the key to unlocking so many of his current struggles.
It's amazing how those early childhood experiences can have such a lasting impact on us.
And through conversations with his mother, he starts piecing together what actually happened.
It turns out Ethan had manipulated him into killing the mouse, preying on his fear and his desire to be seen as tough.
So even at that young age, Daniel was already experiencing those patterns of manipulation and betrayal that would later play out with Lathe.
It's like a light bulb goes off. He sees how that early trauma has been shaping his patterns of codependency, self-sabotage, and his inability to trust his own instincts.
It's like a domino effect.
It all comes full circle.
So Daniel, determined to delve deeper into this childhood trauma, decides to attend another Kimba ceremony.
He's not looking for a quick fix or a magical solution anymore. He wants a deeper understanding of himself and his past.
He's ready to face those demons head on.
And this time, he's more prepared. He's more aware of the emotional and psychological terrain he's about to navigate.
He knows it's going to be a wild ride, but he's ready for it.
And this ceremony takes him all the way to Holland.
He's really committed to this healing journey.
And let me tell you, the ceremony doesn't disappoint. It's a whirlwind of visions, intense emotions, and profound insights.
This time, he goes even deeper, exploring his masculine identity and confronting those fears that have been holding him back.
He experiences a series of visions, some terrifying, some empowering. They all challenge his perception of himself and the world around him.
Like he's being shown different facets of who he is, who he could be.
Exactly. And in one vision, he's this giant gorilla running through a jungle.
With incredible strength and confidence. You can almost feel the power radiating from him.
It's a powerful symbol of his primal masculine energy, his raw power and vitality.
And then there's another vision where he finds himself in this futuristic control room surrounded by clones.
Representing different aspects of himself.
Like he's getting a glimpse into his own mind, seeing how his thoughts and emotions manifest in his behavior.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how our minds work?
But the most intense vision, the one that really hits home for Daniel, is when he revisits that memory of Ethan and the mouse.
This time, he fully accesses the memory, experiencing it with a clarity he's never had before.
He feels the full weight of that guilt and shame, reliving the trauma in all its rawness.
It's like he's finally facing the monster in the closet.
But here's the crucial part. This time, he's able to rewrite the narrative.
He stands up to Ethan, refuses to kill the mouse.
And he reclaims his power in that situation.
It's a moment of liberation, of breaking free from the chains of the past.
He's not that scared little boy anymore. He's a man who can stand up for himself.
It's a powerful symbol of self-forgiveness and a testament to the transformative power of healing.
It's like he's finally giving that little boy the love and support he needed all those years ago.
And the impact is immediate. Daniel emerges from this ceremony feeling lighter, freer, more connected to himself than ever before.
It's like a weight has been lifted off his shoulders.
He's shed the burden of the past and embraced a newfound sense of peace and authenticity.
He's finally able to live in the present moment without that constant nagging of guilt and self-doubt.
It's like he's been given a second chance at life.
And this newfound clarity extends to his relationships as well. When he returns to York, he has a newfound appreciation for the simple things in life.
His empathy for others has deepened, and he's determined to build healthy connections.
He's no longer drawn to drama or chaos. He seeks authenticity and genuine connection.
He's learned his lesson the hard way, but he's come out stronger on the other side.
There's even this great little story about how he handles a frustrating encounter with a self-checkout machine. You know, those machines, always causing problems.
Instead of getting flustered and anxious, he approaches the situation with humor and patience.
It's a small moment, but it speaks volumes about the shift that's happened within him.
It's like he's finally able to laugh at the absurdity of life rather than getting caught up in the drama.
And this new, open way of being leads him to an unexpected connection.
Peaches.
Yeah, his eccentric coworker at the restaurant where he works.
She's such a fascinating character. Unpredictable, quirky, but with a kind heart.
She challenges Daniel's assumptions and pushes him outside his comfort zone.
It's like she's a breath of fresh air, reminding him that life doesn't have to be so serious all the time.
And it's through Peaches that Daniel is introduced to Serenity.
Ah, Serenity. A young woman who lives in Glastonbury.
Her name alone just screams peace and tranquility, right?
She quickly becomes a source of intrigue for Daniel. She embodies a lot of the qualities he's been searching for in a partner.
Intelligence, creativity, a free spirit.
It's like she represents a new chapter in his life.
And their initial interactions are all through text messages.
They have this playful banter, a bit of flirtation.
It's clear there's a spark between them.
And what I find really interesting is how Daniel is surprisingly bold with Serenity.
He's more confident, more direct. He's not holding back.
He's finally allowing himself to be vulnerable without fearing judgment or rejection.
It's a beautiful example of how healing can lead to greater self-acceptance.
It really is. And as their connection deepens, Daniel takes a leap of faith.
He decides to visit Serenity in Glastonbury.
It's a 5-hour journey from York, but he's willing to make the effort.
And their first meeting is just pure magic.
They connect on a deep level, sharing their stories, their passions, their dreams.
They explore Glastonbury together, visiting ancient ruins, cozy cafes.
It's a romantic adventure.
And their connection goes beyond just the physical.
They have these deep conversations about life, spirituality, even the nature of reality.
Daniel opens up about his experiences with the Kimba ceremony, his struggles with Lathe, and his newfound understanding of himself.
And Serenity listens with so much empathy and understanding.
It's like she sees him for who he truly is.
And as they spend more time together, Daniel finds himself falling for her.
He's drawn to her intelligence, her creativity, her free spirit.
He feels a sense of peace and joy in her presence that he's never experienced before.
And he doesn't hesitate to express his feelings.
He tells her how much he enjoys her company, how attracted he is to her.
He's being honest and direct.
It's a testament to his growth.
And the best part is, Serenity feels the same way.
They have a genuine connection, both physically and emotionally.
It's a beautiful love story.
But just when you think everything is falling into place, there's a twist.
Peaches starts acting really strange.
She tries to discourage the relationship, warning Serenity about Daniel.
She even suggests that Daniel might be dangerous or manipulative.
It's so unexpected.
It makes you wonder, what's her angle? Is she jealous? Or is there something more going on?
It definitely adds another layer of intrigue to the story.
And Daniel finds himself questioning her motives too.
He's learned to trust his instincts, but he's also open to the possibility that he's misreading the situation.
He's trying to navigate this new relationship with caution.
He's walking a tightrope between vulnerability and self-protection.
He's learned his lesson about trust and manipulation.
And as he's trying to figure things out with Serenity, he can't shake this feeling that something's off.
Like there's a piece of the puzzle missing.
He keeps thinking about Lathe.
Wondering what happened to him, if their story is truly over.
It's like he can't fully move on until he gets some closure.
And this feeling intensifies when he stumbles upon a clue that suggests Lathe might be in Gibraltar.
Talk about a curveball.
It's totally out of left field.
Now he has to choose between his desire to move forward with Serenity and this pull of unfinished business with Lathe.
It's a tough decision.
He's torn between the past and the present.
Part of him wants to just forget about Lathe and focus on this new love.
But there's this other part of him that's drawn to the possibility of closure.
The chance to finally understand Lathe's motivations and find a sense of peace.
It's a gamble, but Daniel's gut is telling him to take it.
So he does something that surprises even himself. He books a flight to Gibraltar,
He's following his intuition.
embracing the unknown.
He's come a long way from that anxious, self-doubting guy we met at the beginning of this story.
And as he lands in Gibraltar, he feels this surge of anticipation.
He's stepping into unfamiliar territory.
It's exciting and terrifying at the same time.
He knows he's in for a wild ride.
And what comes next is going to surprise you. And he just dives right in, like following every lead, every hunch.
And he's so present during the search, you know, taking in everything around him, not stuck in his head.
Right, he's not overthinking things or analyzing every little interaction.
It's like he's finally free from that constant anxiety.
But get this, his search leads him to a comedy club of all places.
A comedy club? Talk about irony.
I know, right? You wouldn't exactly picture Lathe thriving in an environment like that.
A place where you're supposed to be vulnerable and authentic.
It's wild. But Daniel decides to stay for the show.
Maybe he's hoping to find some answers. Maybe a part of him still wants to believe in the good in Lathe.
And then the next comedian takes the stage. It's Lathe.
No way.
Yeah, but not the Lathe, Daniel remembers. This Lathe is confident, charismatic, in control.
Wow, so he actually turned his life around.
It seems like it. He's up there cracking jokes, telling stories. He's got the audience in stitches.
It's like he's finally found a way to channel all that energy into something positive.
Right. He's taken those manipulative tendencies and turned them into a performance.
It's actually pretty inspiring when you think about it.
It is. And after the show, they meet.
What happens?
It's a little awkward at first, of course.
Yeah.
But there's also this sense of relief, a need to clear the air.
So they talk things out.
They do. They grab a drink, reminisce about old times, and eventually they address the elephant in the room.
The events that led to their separation.
Exactly. Daniel finally gets to tell Lathe how his actions affected him, how much he hurt him.
And how does Lathe react?
He listens. He doesn't make excuses or try to deflect the blame.
That's huge.
It is. Lathe acknowledges the pain he caused and offers a genuine apology.
Wow, so he really has changed.
It seems like it. He even explains his side of the story, sharing the insecurities and fears that were driving him back then.
What kind of things does he say?
He talks about his crippling self-doubt, his fear of failure, his desperate need for approval.
It's like he was wearing a mask all along, hiding his true self.
And he admits that he felt threatened by Daniel's success, which led him to sabotage their friendship.
It's a raw, honest confession.
And in that moment, Daniel finds himself able to forgive.
That's incredible, to let go of all that anger and resentment.
It's not easy, but he realizes that forgiveness is the key to his own healing.
It's a powerful moment, a recognition that holding on to that pain only hurts you in the end.
And with that forgiveness comes a release, a shift in their dynamic.
The tension melts away.
They're able to see each other again, maybe not as best friends, but as two people who shared a part of their lives.
Who learn from each other, who hurt each other, and who can now finally move on.
It's a beautiful thing.
It really is. So what happens next?
Daniel heads back to York, back to Serenity.
He chooses love over adventure.
He's prioritizing connection, building a life that's grounded in honesty and self-awareness.
He's come such a long way from that codependent self-doubting guy we met at the beginning.
It's proof that healing is possible, that even after the most difficult experiences, we can emerge stronger and wiser.
It's an inspiring message.
But before we wrap things up, I can't help but think about those reptilian hallucinations.
Oh, yeah. The story never really explains them, does it?
What if they were more than just figments of Daniel's imagination?
What if they were glimpses into something we don't fully understand, some hidden aspect of reality?
It's a mind-blowing thought. If our brains can create those vivid, almost prophetic images, what does that say about the nature of consciousness?
It makes you question everything.
It does. And that's the beauty of this story. It doesn't give us all the answers, but it sparks our curiosity, challenges our assumptions, and invites us to explore the mysteries of our own minds.
It's a story that stays with you long after you finish reading it.
It really does. And that's it for our deep dive into Time Not Here.
I hope you enjoyed the journey.
As always, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What resonated with you the most? What are you still pondering?
And as you go about your day, pay attention to those subtle nudges, those intuitive flashes. You never know what secrets your own mind might be trying to reveal.